Hey everybody. I just started reading the novel East of Eden by John Steinbeck, and this video is about how I can tell that I already know I'm going to like this book. This is my blog, Dysfunctional Literacy, and I write a series on it called Literary Glance, where I read the first few pages of a novel, and then I explain why I will or I won't continue reading it. And even though I've read a lot of books, I've never read East of Eden. I'd always been aware of the book when I was growing up. Like in high school, I knew about John Steinbeck because we read Of Mice and Men, and it was okay, but it didn't lead me to search for more John Steinbeck books. And I, I just knew when I was a kid, I was aware of an old movie called East of Eden. I don't know if I knew that John Steinbeck wrote it, but I knew of the movie. It had James Dean and some other famous people. And I mean, famous people from before I was born, they weren't necessarily famous when I was growing up in the 1970s and early 80s. But I never saw the movie, and I never read the book, and I've never seen a classic comic book version of East of Eden either. I mention that because a lot of the classic novels that I read when I was a kid, I read them because my dad had the classic novels, and I'd read those, and that led me to reading the books. So, anyways, recently East of Eden has been laying around the house because my daughter had to read it last year in a high school English class, and I hated admitting to her that I'd never read it because, I'd read a lot of books, and since I wasn't familiar with East of Eden, I expected my daughter to hate it because students hate almost every book they're forced to read, except for maybe To Kill a Mockingbird. When I was in school, nobody hated To Kill a Mockingbird. At least they didn't. They didn't actively admit they hated it. They might have quietly disliked it, but nobody admitted that they hated it. Anyway, my daughter really liked East of Eden. I mean, she said she really liked it. I was stunned. She said it reminded her of a soap opera only for smart people. her her one complaint was that descriptions were too long, especially at the beginning. So I was thinking, well, really? She liked it, and her only complaint was descriptions. All right, fine. I think I'm gonna read it. So finally, finally got around to reading the first few pages of East of Eden, and I'm having trouble. I finally got around to reading the first few pages of East of Eden, and I already know I'm gonna continue this book. I think I'm gonna like it. Uh, Despite a few long descriptions, I'm kind of like my daughter in that way. I'm not a fan of long descriptions, but you know, um, I like dialogue and story progression. But I thought even the descriptions, like this one on the first page, the descriptions are pretty good. From both sides of the valley, little streams slipped out of the hill canyons and fell into the bed of the Salinas River. In the winter of wet years, the streams ran full freshet, and they swelled the river until sometimes it raged and boiled, bank full, and then it was a destroyer. The river tore the edges of the farmlands and washed whole acres down. It toppled barns and houses into itself to go floating and bobbing away. It trapped cows and pigs and sheep and drowned them in its muddy brown water and carried them to the sea. And that wasn't even the entire first paragraph. Or that's not the first paragraph, the entire paragraph of the first page. It carried over to the second page. And let me tell you, it was awesome. And I'm not going to explain to you why I think that's good description or well written description. I just like it. I just think it is. Now, I do have one minor complaint about the book, of course. Every once in a while, there's an observation that doesn't ring true to me. And here's an example beginning of the subchapter 2 of chapter 2. When a child first catches adults out, when it first walks into his grave little head that adults do not have divine intelligence, that their judgments are not always wise, their thinking true, their sentences just, his world falls into a panic desolation. The gods are fallen and all safety gone. And there is one sure thing about the fall of gods. They do not fall a little. They crash and shatter or sink deeply into green muck. It is a tedious job to build them up again. They never quite shine, and the child's world is never quite whole again. It is an aching kind of growing. Okay, all right. This whole paragraph is what I call literary nonsense. It's well written and it sounds profound, and maybe it's true in some situations, but it's not universal. And it's written in such a way to make it sound universal. Oh, I left an apostrophe out of it. It is written in a way. Okay, anyways, for example, my worldview wasn't shattered when I realized my dad was full of crap. I was kind of relieved. As a little kid, I was kind of intimidated by my dad, so I felt like vindicated when I realized he was just as flawed, maybe even more flawed, maybe even a lot more flawed than I was or am. So, I mean, yeah, Steinbeck's observation, it's not the only one, but that's literary nonsense. But stuff like that doesn't make me stop reading the book. I'm not going to like loudly proclaim, when a reader first catches a famous literary author out, when it first walks into her grave little head, that literary authors do not have divine intelligence, that their judgments are not always wise, their thinking true, their sentences just her world falls into a panic desolation. That's it's a little strong. My world is not a panic desolation just because John Steinbeck makes an occasional nonsense observation. I mean, it's just John Steinbeck is full of crap like everybody else. And I'll still finish reading East of Eden. Like my daughter said, it's like a soap opera for smart people. All right, enough about me. What do you think? Have you read East Eden? Do you like long descriptions? Is your world a panic desolation? I really hope your world is not a panic desolation. All right, thanks for watching. And if you like this video, consider hitting the like button and subscribing. And remember to check out my blog, Dysfunctional Literacy.